Dating a single dad has a bad rap because I looked online, couldn't find any information. And you know what? My name is Joshua Ward with Z Changed Me, and we're gonna go into a little bit more information on debunking some of those negatives, but also maybe giving you different perspectives of dating a single dad. But let's do the intro first and then content after. See you in a bit. Now, when I tell you there's no good information online about dating a single dad, there is no good information. Most of the time it's a lot of negative because people go online and voice their negatives. But you know what? I'm going to be the voice of reason. I'm going to be the one that talks about what are some potential positives and also looking at the negatives maybe from a different vantage point. But before I do that, let me talk about my channel. We talk about relationships, single dad, that's who I am, what I am, and what I'm about in today's content. And we also do personal growth and also attachment theory. I have a lot of different backgrounds. I got my doctorate, my master's, a lot of different areas of understanding, different businesses I've started. And I've also been married, also take care of my daughter full time. So I have a slew of information to be able to add value to you. But the single dad perspective is, there's a lot of different things to take into consideration. People, a lot of times online, will project their problems and the situations and their trauma with past relationships, and then they'll pinpoint a certain characteristics like single dad and just say that's the problem. Relationships in general are hard just for a blanket statement. They're difficult to begin with, but just let me give you some insight on some things to look for, but also I'm going to give you some perspectives of how to navigate through some of the negatives and add some positives to it at the same time. But let's get into it. The answers to the negative. Now, we are not going to see eye to eye to this. I mean, we're just not. Okay, I'm just going to help give you a different perspective on how to maybe evaluate if dating a single dad is something that could be possible for you in the situation, instead of just giving a blanket statement, no dads. Because the older we get, the harder it is to truly find, and canceling out people with kids may minimize your dating pool overall. But one thing I also want to make sure to take in consideration is most people, before I go more into the answers, they have a good understanding a lot of times of what they feel, but I think a lot of people have a hard time communicating that. Now, anxious people have a better understanding of their feelings than avoidant people, but I'm not going into more detail with that. But I just want to make sure you understand that. And there's two different types. There's going to be the full-time single dad and then the part-time single dad. Not to be negative or problematic, I just didn't find a way to say it. I don't want to say custodial, non-custodial, it just sounds so formal. So we have the full-time dad and we have the part-time dad. Full-time dad is the dad who takes care of the kid majority of the time, take the kid to school, pick them up, all that stuff. And then it go to maybe the mom side every other weekend. And then the part-time is the flip of that, where they see them every weekend. It has different psychology that's associated with it. So that's why I want to make sure I separated the difference. Now, the number one negative I hear all the time, not being the first priority. They think the kids should get the first priority. Now, remember what I said, I think a lot of people don't have a good understanding of how to communicate how they feel, but it's something in that area where the people say, this doesn't feel right. And in married couples, you see it all the time. So they get married and then they have a kid, and then what happens is normally is the mother gets so attached to the child because they have less trauma and they'll be able to mold the child to wherever they want to. Now what happens is all the attention goes to the kid and then the spouse gets secondary. And it could be even both parents focusing on the kids, but the relationship is not there. So that happens even in marriage. So the thing is, I feel like people give too much weight to the child, and I love my daughter. I do everything, and every decision I made is made because of her. But I think what's happening is, I think women want to be heard as a partner to the husband, not third in place behind the child. Now, we've talked about this before, that a child's brain doesn't really truly develop until they're 25. So having them have a say-so on the relationship is probably not as wise, but you should have the maturity to find the right person that you can work together to work on that kid. So I think the priority should be the person that you're married to or you feel like you're going to marry. Now, in the beginning, it may not be the case because you need to build that relationship, but it should be the case, because outside of loving your kid unconditionally, outside of loving your kid unconditionally, I think the most important thing you can do for your child is set the example of what relationships should be. And I feel like if you find a single dad that's able to understand that over time you're going to be the person I'm going to work with, because ideally you as an individual, the girl, should be able to be independent on their own to take care of their own stuff, and so should I. So even though the priority and the decision making should be done through the adults, the child is developing. They should get most of the attention, and because they are trying to grow into that individual. But what happens is it usually is lopsided. It is not a teamwork perspective, or the person doesn't even say so, and they feel like, why am I even here, right? This is what I believe. I could be wrong, right? So there was a story about this guy and this girl. They fall in love, and they absolutely just they just love each other, and then they get married, and they had three beautiful girls, and they just over time just started to drift away. But they kept doing the family vacations and the duties of the household, but the love just kind of went away. Until one day, the man's sitting in the kitchen, the woman's cooking, and he hears a song that reminds them before they had kids, before they got married, and when they were deeply in love. And he has an urge to get up and just starts dancing with his wife. And he dances and he dances, and at the end of the song, he kisses her. But what they didn't realize was their three daughters were at the doorway watching this whole thing happen the whole way. And the middle child, the 5-year-old, comes running up to the mom, just running up, and then she just starts crying, holding her leg. And the mom's like, why are you crying? And they wouldn't respond. She wouldn't respond at all. And they kept asking different ways until she said, how you feel? And the girl said, happy. Understanding the what a child needs for the example of showing what love is like and how love is supposed to be displayed is a huge thing. So, and plus also the kids are going to eventually leave after 18 years. So the person you're going to be with is going to be the person that you need to be a priority over life. Hopefully you can be on the same page to understand that the energy should be on the kids to develop. And usually if you do those things, I feel like the relationship works. Now, I could be wrong. Bash me in the comments if you feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, answer number 2, making time together logistics. That is actually difficult. I'm not gonna lie. I really couldn't find an answer to this one. I mean, because in the beginning, like, if a girl has options, right? I'm gonna talk to a guy who doesn't have the kid full time, or they don't have kids, they can hang out anytime I'm available. Wednesday afternoon, I'm free. Hey, what you doing? Find somebody to hang out with you. When you have a full-time dad, that's difficult, because what happens is their priority is have to be home taking care of the kid, so they can't just pick up and leave whenever they want to, so the flexibility is not really there. Now, so I can understand that that's a difficult part, to kind of build trust over time and take time to try to do that compared to somebody else that you can be readily available every time. But I will say, if you get past a certain point to build that relationship, what happens is you won't have somebody running the street all the time, won't be out doing something crazy, they'll be home. And so like from that perspective, if you make it past a certain point, you have somebody who's really gonna be there with you and with the family from that perspective. But again, logistically in the beginning, that is difficult. The number three biggest thing I've seen about negative is baby mama drama. Now, baby mama drama is a huge perspective. Now, that has so many different factors associated with it, but now that goes more into the full-time dad and then a part-time dad. Now, full-time dad and part-time dad is different because of psychology and what they have to bargain with. A lot of times, if you don't have full custody of your child, the other side, the baby mama, will leverage the kid to manipulate the part-time dad because they don't feel like they have any power, which is not true. But that's what they feel like, they don't have any power. Now, being the full-time dad, I don't have that problem because I have the leverage and the bargaining chips. And I treat her respectfully with her mom, and so we don't have any problems. But most single dads are usually, not always, like emotionally stable, and they usually are not gonna use their kids as bargaining chips. Oh, you make me mad, so I'm not gonna let you see my kid. That's not how I operate. But I've seen it a lot of times the other way. And so that could be a problem. Now, single dads that are part-time, like don't have the kid all the time, you understand that you're allowed them to do that because you can easily call the cops and show them that you have that time with your child, and she has to give that kid to you. I think subconsciously, I think it gives them the single parent, the part-time single parent, a way out so they don't have to. But if you don't realize, like if you put your foot down and do that, because what happens is the baby mama, if they don't give that kid to you at the time, they can go to jail. And so once you start to realize that, then you need to step down and do what you need to do for your kids, all right? And so once you step, I think the problem is baby mama drama. The main thing is that some fathers are afraid of their exes and they're not willing to step up and stand up for themselves and stand up for the person they're with. And then that causes problems and that blurs the line. So those are the 3 negatives, right? But I'm going to talk about things to consider, then the positives. I'm going to jump through it really quick. So let's do it. Now, there are 4 things to consider real quick before we go into the positives. The first thing is age. Now, with age, there's 2 factors within age you got to take into consideration. Now, that's how old are they at that point in time when you're meeting that individual, or how old were they when they went through the separation or the divorce? These factors are, I'm not saying what to do, but there's things to take consideration. If they were in a complete household and the mother and father were in the same household together for 15 years and then they separate or get a divorce, they're gonna have a hard time letting go of what they remember compared to trying to start a new relationship. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying there's things to take consideration. If the divorce happened younger, it'd be one thing, or if they're even younger, it's easier for them to, because they have less to compare it with. Number 2, are they in therapy? Like the single dad, if they're single dads and they take care of the kid full time, or if they didn't, they had some problems why they got in trouble in the first place. And it's not the other side. It's most likely themselves. The single dad had to understand there's some trauma that got them in an unhealthy situation that causes the separation to begin with. So therapy is huge because we don't realize how much we don't know unless we have a third person perspective helping us understand. Number 3, how good is their support group? Do they have people that can maybe watch the kid? Do you have people who can communicate, or the people, friends in general, to help take their mind off situations? Like, how good is a support group, or is it just them and the children? Okay, I think a lot of times what happened after my divorce, I kind of just focused so much on my child, and I think that wasn't really healthy. I mean, started going back and building relationships with my family and my friends really added value in a lot of different ways. And then number 4, how involved is the mom? Because if the mom is not involved, that maybe gives you less things to worry about, or it can give you more things to worry about, depending on how involved. If they're healthy in that relations in that child's life, that can give you some freedoms too. So understanding those 4 factors are different, but understanding what's best for your situation and looking at the specific situation in itself. So let's go into the positives, and I'm looking forward to it. Now let's jump into the potential positives, all right? The first one was kind of given to me, which they're house trained. Now, most of the time when you have to take care of a kid, you have to know like making lunches and making sure you fold clothes and do laundry and cook, and sometimes I'll just cook chicken nuggets because that's what my daughter always eats. But I mean, you learn how to live in a household and do all the things that most probably men are probably afraid of or don't really even like to do. Not saying that I like to do it, but over time, it just gets easier and easier to be able to do these things because you find a system in place. Number 2, you get to know inside of them, like what's inside of them, like in general, like what's their character. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell if you don't have kids because it can be hidden very well, but you can definitely see how they are depending on how they treat their kids. Number 3 is usually they're going to be emotionally and financially stable, all right? To get custody or get time with the kids, a lot of times those men have to have some type of stability financially and some emotional stability at the same time, all right? Plus, I think what happens with kids when fathers have that relationship with them, it actually opens them up to be more vulnerable and more willing to talk about their feelings, which a lot of guys are afraid of. I feel like this light is like coming at me like at fire. Let me probably switch this around a little bit. Oop, that was worse. All right, I'm gonna keep it like that. And I get my jacket on because it's cold. Texas has finally got cold here, and I don't want to have my AC heater on because it's really, really loud. So, number 4, kids would be a plus depending on what's going on, how old you are, if you want to have your own kid, or if you can't have kids, and sometimes the kid can be a good added bonus. Again, that depends on the demeanor, which also will depend what kind of parent they have, because if the parent spends time and also will be there, a lot of times it'll be a lot better, and also depending on their past traumas that are being pulled into the now. And lastly, they probably will fight for their relationship. I mean, if after a certain point, if they fought for their kids and sacrifice a lot of different things, because anybody who takes care of the kids, no matter if you're a single dad or a single mother, you make sacrifices. And so understanding that if they find somebody else that's in their life that's important to them, they'll try to do whatever they can to fight for that relationship too. I understand that we have a better relationship with technology than we do with the people around us. It's been more consistent than anything else. But you gotta understand that even with people on blogs and doing blogs online, it's only coming from their perspective. So, and I'm not saying it's not valuable, but take that in consideration in your life and then make a decision from it. I know that online there's been a bashing of like dating single dads, but I think a lot of it is people exit those situations because they don't have an understanding of how to evaluate those situations because there's not a lot of information. But hopefully this video gives you some perspective on the negatives and also some positives and things to consider to give you a different perspective to help you make decisions that can be beneficial for you down the road. Again, I'm not the end all be all, but hopefully I did add a value. I need to do better about saying like and subscribe earlier in my videos, and I will try to do those things more down the road. But as I end all my contents, if you have kids, slow down and give them a hug. Sometimes we forget when's the last time we've done so. And then also tell your kid that they're worthy no matter what. No matter what they do, how they are, because they're your child, they're worthy and loved. They need to hear it on a consistent basis. You may think they know, but they need to hear it.